Hi there, I am Adam Kirbas, and this is another episode of my podcast, Political Science. Politics is a slippery slope, and indeed everyone wants to accomplish something. And we can only accomplish something against others. This is what elections are all about. This is not one party, this is not one politician who competes with himself. No, this is always one politician, one party whatsoever, who or which competes against other parties and so on. And politics is always about how you represent yourself. This is what we concluded so far. How you represent yourself. And it is not only about you, it is as well as how you represent your opponent, others in campaigns, before elections, before whatever you have. And it is very important in a way to distinct yourself from others, from other political parties, from opponents. It can help voters to understand your party line, to understand what you stand for, or to grasp what you stand for, to associate with you and some sort of differentiate you from others and so on. And you want to accomplish as a politician a unique style, something which if you want takes you apart, or which makes you unique in the eyes of the voters, which makes you special in that sense, because this is what politicians is about. You want to present it yourself as unique. And of course, you want to destroy your opponents as well. I mean, this is what politics is all about. It is not all about white gloves. So in politics, mostly the gloves are off. You are fighting your opponents. You wanna exploit their mishaps. You wanna exploit their mistakes and so on. And it is key component in the politics. Of course, some take it too far if you want. I mean, dirty campaigning is one of the key ingredients, if you want, in our recent political system. You rather talk about the failures and shorthaps of others rather than about your own accomplishments, especially if you have not accomplished anything. This is mostly we see in the opposition. Today we want to talk about a very important topic in political science, and this is campaigning, dirty campaigning. Everyone knows that in our life we always some sort of perceive that others are not good or that others are bad and so on, and we want to show the world their true faces. We want to put things right, if you want. We want the world to see what we see, to perceive what we perceive, and we will put in a lot of effort, a lot of strength, whatever you have, in order to show the world that our opponent, that the person we don't like is a crook, is deceptive, what have you. But how can you attack your opponent? And we talk in the political sphere. I mean, you have an opponent, you go into an election, you are a politician, or if you want in an office, in your workplace, and you want to some sort of destroy your opponent, or just differentiate yourself in that way. I mean, not everyone will go immediately for the kill. Maybe yes, maybe true, but you want to some sort of differentiate yourself, and you want to exploit the weaknesses of your opponents and make it public. But how can you do that? Again, we will we'll talk about how politicians are being perceived. I mean, if you are a taxpayer, if you are a normal citizen, then you pay taxes. You entrust the government to take care of your money. If you want in banks, you want them to take care of your security. I mean, if you pay taxes, you in a way expect something in return. I mean, if you pay taxes and you still have to take care of your own security, have to still protect your own property instead of the state, then you should probably demand from your constitution or constituent something, a change in that sense. We would all agree that if we pay taxes, that we want to get something in return. This was the American Revolution, was about this fact that you have to tax. No taxation without representation was the key slogan, or one of the slogans in the American Revolution against the British motherland. Pardon me. So we pay taxes, we give the government money, we some sort of trust the government. If you want, of course, everyone or some will disagree. You should never trust the government. Well, you do if you pay your taxes, if you some sort of maintain the state. You some sort of have a contract with the government that you give it money, and that in return your life, your property will be preserved, will kept secure, or that society, or this is the way how society works, how the state can work with taxation and so on. So you trust the government, and of course you want the government to be very diligent with your money. You want people to deal with your money who are trustworthy, who have high ethical standards, who have some sort of virtues, so who are not deceptive, who are not crooks, and so on. And this is what we would partially hold politicians for accountable for, whether they are truthful, whether they do not deceive the state or deceive us. And we have some sort of high standards of politicians, and we demand high standards of politicians. Firstly, because their private lives are in a way public. We want them to be perfect specimen in their lives, so they always have to keep everything in order. They should know how to lead a society, apparently, and they should know how to treat or how to weather different times. This is what we would expect from a politician, to find solutions and so on. And of course, how can we determine this? If we have some sort of evaluate politicians with high moral standards. So they have to have high moral standards. They have to have some sort of above the average, and they don't have to be greedy and so on. This is what we see politicians for. So in that sense, this ideal form of politicians, in that sense, we would say, if you want to attack someone, if you want to some sort of destroy your opponent, in that sense, then it makes sense that you would some sort of go for it, to exploit the misdeeds of someone. I mean, this man, for example, this man is not trustworthy with money. This politicians does not know how to lead, or this politician doesn't know how to handle things, or is acting out in special situation, is acting out in some instances where it comes where our security is at stake, or this politician does not know what is national security concerns, or this politician is a threat to us. This is what you would normally see. So this is what you would normally attack a politician's for. You would destroy this ideal notion of a politician, which is being perceived in the public as trustworthy, as decent, having high moral standards, having virtue, taking care of other people. So this this makes sense in that or it is in that way understandable for everyone. I assume that you just, if you want to destroy someone who has this high moral standards, then it is just easier. Go for it. Try to find weaknesses. Try to find something this person did wrong, and then you exploit this mistake. This happened, for example, recently in the German election. However, but this perception of politicians changed in that sense that every politician, and this is what you saw in the election campaign of Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump, that this perception of these politicians, of politicians, that they always know what to say, that they always say the right things, they say no, they are some sort of politically correct, they are part of the establishment, and so on. This has increasingly became very negative in that sense. It is not really considered authentic anymore. So it is if you acted, if you want, it is some sort of role play. This is what you would assume and which you have some sort of pretty much perceived in the election of Hillary, or in the campaign of Hillary Clinton, that many said this is not real, this is not authentic. She is part of the establishment. She is part of this cultural conformists and so on. So one of the reasons why Donald Trump won was actually because he was not an insider of Washington and so on. So this has led to a very negative view. So, or if you want, when George W. Bush became president, they talked about his drug addiction, and that he some sort of overcame this addiction, and that he is repentant. He found himself, and so on. So he has not this ideal image, which everyone would assume as being the commander-in-chief. No, he had his problems. He went through a drug addiction, but then in the end he overcame it, and then his belief, his family helped him, and so on. Now he became a better politician, and so on. So this was one of the narratives how George W. Bush actually could beat Al Gore, because Al Gore was just too perfect. If you listen to some speeches of him, I mean, they are pretty much before the 2000s, so there are not many, but if you listen to Al Gore and he speak what he says and how he says it, then you really see that he always says the right thing in that way. So it is in a way really perfect what he says. It is great, it makes sense here, but it somehow does not really sound authentic. So this is what you already saw back in the campaign of Al Gore. This too perfect. This is partially suspicious, and it is some sort of does not take into consideration that there is a change in time, that politicians, they are not considered infallible anymore. So that this elite, this closed elite in the political sphere, that this is rather considered as suspicious. For example, in France, in France, there was a scandal a couple of years ago where it was revealed that pretty much everyone knew about this, but the public, or it became striking in the public, this was that many French presidents and many French leading politicians that they actually went into one school or they were even in one class, and that this is some sort of a closed elite, and every politician, some sort of comes from this elite, and this was a big scandal. However, I mean, it was pretty much clear before that this is happening. This is happening everywhere. I mean, this is not only in France. This is, if you want, in Germany, in Austria. If you have relatives who are already in the politics, if you have someone or whatever, then it is most likely that you will end up there as well. However, this splendid image of a politician, this has some sort of waned. So if you would, in that sense, attack someone, it would be very difficult to see his faults in a way, or some sort of describe his faults, because now more and more, if you want to be a successful politician, you have to present yourself as human being, and as fallible, as someone who makes mistakes, but important is someone who learns from this. I mean, this is what was the campaign of George W. Bush all about, this drug addict who overcame his addiction, and then with religion, with help of his family, and so on and so on. So in that sense, if you would want to attack someone in your political campaign, this would be very difficult. In that sense, you could not really attack him, because he some sort of does not represent this ideal image of a politician. No, he's human. He's almost all too human. But what helped, or what pretty much what you could see in the election or in the campaign of George W. Bush, was when there were some rumors that he's drinking again, or that he has been started misusing again. So in that sense, this all too human image crumbles in that sense. Or why does it crumble? It crumbles because if we consider someone as human, as this is not some sort of a detached politician far away from us. No, this is a normal human being, an ordinary guy who, because he's ordinary, because he went through some things, has gained experience. This is very important. Has gained experience beyond what a normal politician in Washington may have gained. This is what Donald Trump, for example, always emphasized. He's a businessman. He knows how to run businesses. He's not part of the detached Washington elite of the detached Washington clique. And this is what you saw pretty much partially with George W. Bush, despite the fact that his father was president before. However, some sort of, they said, his son was different. This was partially before, because he had support from the evangelists and so on. However, but it made him more human and more experienced. But he lost out a little bit when rumors started, that this narration of him that he would be some sort of or has overcome his addiction so that he would stand above it. This some sort of crumbled. This crumbled, as well as later on. This was before the attacks of 9/11, where everyone said that he would only be on holidays, so he would not be in office and so on. So he's a bum and so on. And this is what you saw with the polls. The polls were depreciating it, so he was not in the office and rather somewhere in Texas and so on and so on. So in that sense, what you could attack there is that someone actually does not, or an all too human politicians, we always assume this is a nice guy. This is someone down to earth, different from the elite. You could attack someone in emphasizing, no, this person is not different at all. He or she has not overcome their addiction. He or she, in that sense is no different than a failure, because this is what people do not want to see. If you are politician, then everyone wants to see that you had some sort of success, that you understand something. This became, for example, very fatal for Donald Trump, when everyone some sort of questioned whether he is a good businessman, whether he is capable of making deals. Everyone pretty much saw in his presidency he is actually not capable of making good deals. It is rather about publicity. It is rather how to present yourself, and this was fatal for him. And many had, of course, high hopes that he would be some sort of different, would bring in a new approach to Washington, and a more down-to-earth approach, and so on. So you could some sort of embarrass someone in front of his own voters. This is what the Democrats tried to do. Partially successful, of course. It was not very, because it was not very successful, or it was only partially successful because in the Democrats are still being associated with this Washington elite, this detached, and having lost their footing in the normal world, and so on. So you attack someone's own image. Again, we are there how someone represents himself. If this person represents himself as an ideal specimen, then you attack this ideal specimen. And if someone represents himself as a human, all too human, then you go for some sort of reverse it in a way. But does it work always? So can you always attack someone's image, public image, and gain from it? What I want to talk about is, as a politician, like we said, we always want people who are successful. We don't want to elect someone who is a loser, who did not accomplish any thing, who is just, I don't know, another bum, if you want. I mean, this is pretty much harsh, but it has been said. So someone who has in a way accomplished something. And how can you really determine someone who has accomplished something or is being liked? This is very important. So politicians, you want that a politician is being liked by his family, by the people who surround him, and everyone only speaks in high praises about this politician. He or she is the next new deal for the country, and the real deal, and everyone should vote for it. So it is understandable you would some sort of see or want politicians be liked in that sense. Of course, everyone will some sort of admonish me, say, Machiavelli said, or many power theoretics said, it is better to be liked, to be feared than liked. This is true. But however, in politics, in appeal, and how you appeal to your voters, it is smarter, or it is better that you are being liked, because you don't vote for a politician whom you fear. This is what happened in France with Marine Le Pen. I mean, everyone feared that she would be too radical, that she would be too far right, and so on. That's why many before the election, everyone voted against her. The same happens in Austria as well as with the far right party. Many will fear them, and they fear that if they come on top, then the rule of law would not be applied anymore, or this would be devastating for the rule of law, and so on. Well, it was not the far right who undermined the rule of law in Austria. However, but we would some sort of fear does not really help you to get elected. Fear is something you can make good use in other spheres. For example, if you are within your party, if you are your party leader, then fear fear mixed with admiration will get you far. Whereas just if you are just being liked, this is what we saw or heard the last time, you are some sort of being liked because you are the least fearful person within your party. This is something you could assume, which has been happening with the Biden administration. Joe Biden is mostly probably liked in his own party, but not really feared, or he is not really admired in that sense. This is assumably you perceived this in a way or another. However, fear does not get you elected. But you cannot attack everyone immediately, or you have to be very careful. Some attacks on your opponent's personal life can work out. For example, if you can successfully portray someone as a crook, as someone who is deceptive, and so on and so on. But some things go wrong, and what went wrong is it is an example from Austria that the far right, party leader in Austria was in a relationship, and that his wife betrayed him. So he was a victim of betrayal, and everyone would assume, this would be a great chance to destroy your opponent, to show the world, well, see. Look at him, he can't even rule his wife. Look at him, he does not even have the power, or he's not even been liked by his wife, and so on. It did not work. However, and there was attempts to attack him, to destroy him, to show the world this man is a crook, and look at him, his wife is betraying him, and not only, and his wife can't stand him, and so on and so on. So there were some attempts to destroy him, but it did not work. It even backfired. Why? Because you some sort of raised empathy in that sense that many people felt sorry for this person, especially men, because the far right party in Austria or many men vote for the far right party. Many men we talked about in the past who are disillusioned with the development in the society, who lost out. Who lost out in this technological development, and they did not appreciate it. Of course, everyone has fears, and this and because of this fear, this pretty much hit the very spot of it. So this man who voted for this party feared, and this is what someone always fears. Everyone fears it, being betrayed by a wife, so that they some sort of had compassion for this man. He was a victim, he was, and so on. This compassion you see with Joe Biden as well. I mean, everyone knows his story, or some know it, so that he went through a lot of loss. He lost his wife and so on. He went through a lot. This makes him human. This makes him some sort of people share their affection with him. So it worked. It worked in that sense because people had affection for him. So this means if you attack someone or your opponent, you always have to be very careful. You cannot, for example, attack someone or let's put it in a different way. If you attack your opponent, then you always have to see who is voting for him, who is electing him. And those people who vote for him, they have some sort of special demands on their politicians. If you are left, if you are from the left, then you want your politician or the person who represents your worldview in that sense, because it is not only about your political opinion anymore, it is about your worldview. Then you have some sort of special standards and demands on your politician, how he or she has to be in order to be to speak to you or being admired or praised by you. You have some sort of demands on them, and this differs. This differs in that sense that if you're a far right person, you want rather a strong man, someone who takes the leads, and important from all, the far right is always comes with nostalgia. So this old world, those old values that your leader praises, the old values, the back in those days where men were men and things were different. This is what you pretty much perceive in that sense. And if you are from the left and you rather want a modern man, this is what you pretty much see how many leftist politicians represent themselves as modern, as open. Recently, for example, Joe Biden went into a lot of critics, for example, because he was for abortion. He is for abortion, but his Catholic belief some sort of bans abortion or is against abortion. So he went into a conflict. However, this does not mean that his support within his own electoral base is waning. Why? Because they want him to be that. They want him to be more modern, or being partially against those established opinions or being against conservatism. This is what you vote for, or especially in the US where there is only two parties. Most of the people, they partially do not even know what their party stands for. They only say, yeah, I am against Democrats, I am against Republicans. However, and we always have opposite views, and this has to be some sort of shown in that sense. So in abortion, it is common known that most of the Republicans, or maybe not Republicans but conservatives, that they are against abortions, and whereas more liberals and moderates, they are for abortion. So this is this long discussion of pro-life and pro-choice. This means you cannot attack someone, for example, Joe Biden, you cannot attack him in that sense that he's some sort of holding up a double standard, because this was the attempt what the conservatives try to do. He's upholding a double standard. His own belief bans abortion, but he's all for it. No, yeah, this doesn't work. This doesn't work in that sense. That is electoral base supports this view. That is electoral base tries to differentiate themselves from the Republicans, from the conservatives. It doesn't work, and it did not work in Austria, where people tried to exploit this far right politicians' marital problems, that he is not the sole ruler of his home, and so on, and everyone would have assumed this would have worked, because all his voters who are men want a strong man, want something, and want a strong man, and they would not appreciate a weak man. But this made him human. This is what many people did not consider. This marital problems of this far-right politician, him being betrayed, this made him human, this made him approachable. This again showed he is not part of this establishment. He is a normal person like you and me, and he some sort of can be victim of this great fear that many men have because of the change of time. But what is the key message here? The key message is that you always have to, if you attack your opponent, then you always have to prevent that people some sort of have compassion for him, understanding for him, or that you some sort of depict him as a human being, as a normal, down-to-earth human being with average problems. And you have to always keep in mind his voter base, who votes for him, who are those people who want to succeed, or who are those people who, for example, saw in George W. Bush one of their own, this former drug addict, and this voter base, they were mostly religious people who some sort of were already struggling, if you want. And if you see some of the narrations in those religions and how people became religious, then you find always this narration that in the beginning they were not very religious. In the beginning they were losing themselves in the beginning, or they went through dark days, or they went through a lot of trouble, but then their religion, their family helped them through a lot, and so on. So they accomplished it, so they succeeded in it, and so on. So this is one key ingredient within the religious narration, or that one big or another big narrative in the religious communities. This fight against temptations. You always have to fight against the temptations of this world. You have to fight against or losing your faith. That you always have to maintain the strength to keep up your belief, to keep up what you hold dear, and so on, or that your belief is always questioned in the real world. This is what many religious people experience. If something is happening in the world, some evil, some dark things are happening, and your belief is questioned. Your belief in the good of God is questioned, or something happens to you, some fatal accident. You could not have been able to do anything against it, so you could not have been able to prepare for it. You did not know, and it happened out of nowhere. An accident, it is an accident. My God, why did it happen to me? And then of course your belief is waning. You are struggling with yourself, and so on and so on. And this narration then played in this part. So this is the George W. Bush, this penitent man who went through darkness, who went through this drug addiction, but he somehow he then overcame it with the support of the belief of his belief. He could some sort of gain strength with his family and wife, and this is why this made it so admirable. This made it different and this made it a very human struggle in that sense, a human struggle where everyone could associate with. And attacking this, I mean, there were some attempts from some people attacking this, being someone or will not succeed in that sense, because this makes someone as human. Or if you would, for example, attack Joe Biden's losses in his life and his family, this would not succeed in that sense, because this makes him human. Or if you attack Joe Biden because apparently he has a double standard in his religion or in his religious belief, this is rather, or this will only help your own electoral base, but it will not some sort of deter people from voting or admiring Joe Biden, because most of his voters and his dictatorial base assume and want a leader who is modern, who is some sort of against conservatives, or is some sort of, or differentiates himself from a conservative belief and so on. So this is something you always have to take into consideration. You always have to watch someone's electoral base. If you attack someone, you don't want to make him too human, right? Quite the contrary, you want to make him evil, vicious, and so on. So this is what the Democrats try to do with Donald Trump. He's someone who does not care about our people. He's someone who only cares about himself and not anyone at all, and so on. And this is what many political campaigns are all about. It's not about humanizing someone, making him weak. Quite the contrary. This is about making someone a demon and so on. These are things which succeed. So, and this is something you have to take into consideration. And the third element is always leave out affections, emotions. You don't want to you don't want to attack someone who has already built up a life story, if you want, a life story which is most likely draw a lot of attention and will gain a lot of affection because of the sadness, because of loss, and so on. So you have to take care of these very important issues in the society, and these are issues which everyone can associate with, because it can happen to everyone. And these are betrayal. I mean, if you fall, especially as a man, there's your manhood at stake. If you fall victim to betrayal, then it is most likely that many men will feel affection for you, or will some sort of pity you and have understanding for you. Or if you fall, or if you have to deal with a loss of your wife, of whatever, of a child, many people will have affection or share their affection with you because of this loss. Or if you some sort of did not succeed in that sense, because our society demands from everyone the best and has a lot of demand on everyone. So everyone has to accomplish something, has to be on ahead of something. I mean, we, especially as men or as well as women, everyone wants something from you, and then you cannot accomplish. You fell in a deep depression, become even addicted to something, drugs and so on. So you don't find your way out of it. This again does not make necessarily someone as weak, but rather, especially if this person can overcome his addiction, makes him actually strong, makes him human, and he some sort of shares all those human traits which we in our days miss in politicians, because politicians, this is what you saw with Hillary Clinton. She's just too perfect in that sense. She's just too this is suspiciously perfect, and so on and so forth. Even though if you some sort of agree with what she stands for and so on, but she some sort of, you always never know, does she really believe in those things, or is it just for PR purposes, because she has a very wealthy background, or she came from a very wealthy background. However, this is what you have to always take into consideration, how you attack someone. Dirty campaigning. If you dirty campaigning is always about someone to demonize.